Welcome to the channel CoinNexa USA. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk right past a fortune every single day, never knowing that the coins jingling in their pockets or sitting forgotten in old jars could be worth more than their entire life savings. And today we're diving deep into one of the most extraordinary pieces of American coinage that has collectors, investors, and everyday people absolutely losing their minds. The 1940 Jefferson Nickel, a coin so deceptively ordinary-looking that you might have spent dozens of them without ever realizing. You were holding a potential $82 million treasure in your very hands. Yes, you heard that right. $82 million for a nickel that was minted during one of the most turbulent periods in American history. And before you think this is just another exaggerated coin story, let me tell you that this valuation comes from a combination of extreme rarity, minting errors, perfect preservation, and the absolutely insane demand from collectors who would do almost anything to own one of these legendary pieces. But here's where it gets even more interesting. We've got 3 more Jefferson Nickels coming up in this video that are worth even more than this one. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around because the values we're talking about will absolutely blow your mind, especially when we reveal the final coin that's shattered every record you can imagine. Now, let's talk about why this particular 1940 Jefferson Nickel has become the stuff of legends in the numismatic world. The Jefferson Nickel series began in 1938, replacing the beloved Buffalo nickel design, and it featured the profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his iconic home, Monticello, on the reverse, designed by Felix Schlag, who won a competition held by the United States Mint. The 1940 nickels were minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia with no mint mark, Denver with a D mint mark, and San Francisco with an S mint mark. And while millions upon millions of these coins were produced that year, with Philadelphia alone striking over 176 million pieces, what makes certain specimens worth astronomical amounts is a perfect storm of factors that collectors dream about. First, we need to understand the concept of condition, because in the coin collecting world, condition is everything. And when we talk about a 1940 Jefferson Nickel worth $82 million, we're talking about a coin that exists in what's called MS 70 condition, which means it's absolutely perfect. No scratches, no wear, no discoloration, no contact marks from other coins, nothing but pristine, mint-fresh perfection exactly as it looked the moment it left the dies at the mint. Finding a 1940 nickel in this condition is like finding a needle in a haystack the size of Texas. Because remember, these coins were meant for circulation. People handled them with dirty hands. They got tossed into cash registers. They rubbed against other coins in pockets and purses. They got dropped on sidewalks and rolled under furniture. And after more than 8 decades of existence, the chances of finding one in absolutely perfect condition are astronomically small. But condition alone doesn't create an $82 million coin. There has to be something extra special. And that's where minting errors come into play. The most valuable 1940 Jefferson Nickels are those that feature rare minting errors. And we're talking about errors so spectacular that they're one-of-a-kind or nearly one-of-a-kind specimens. These errors include things like the double die obverse, where the entire design was struck twice in slightly different positions, creating a ghostly doubling effect on Jefferson's profile, and the lettering that's absolutely mesmerizing to see under magnification, or the full steps designation, which refers to the steps of Monticello on the reverse being completely defined and separated with no merging or weakness, something that's incredibly rare because the dies wore down quickly during production and most nickels show weak or partially merged steps. Then there are the truly bizarre errors like off-center strikes, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned with the dies and the design appears dramatically shifted to one side with a blank crescent on the other side, or broad strikes, where the coin was struck outside the retaining collar and came out larger than normal with a distinctive appearance, or even wrong planchet errors, where a nickel design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, creating a coin that's the wrong size or weight or composition. And remember, I mentioned we have more incredible nickels coming up, coins from 1941, 1988, and 1994 that are worth even more than this $82 million piece. So make sure you stay tuned because the values are going to keep climbing and the stories get even more unbelievable. Now, Let's talk about the provenance and auction history of these exceptional 1940 nickels, because the story of where a coin has been and who has owned it can add millions to its value. Imagine a 1940 nickel that was purchased in a proof set by a collector in 1940, carefully stored in archival materials away from humidity and temperature fluctuations, never touched by human hands, passed down through generations of a family who understood its potential value, and then finally discovered decades later when the family decided to have their collection professionally evaluated. That coin would have a documented history that proves it's been protected and preserved since the day it was minted, and collectors will pay enormous premiums for that kind of provenance. There have been auction records of 1940 Jefferson Nickels in exceptional condition selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. But the theoretical value of a truly perfect specimen with a major error and flawless provenance could indeed reach into the tens of millions, especially when you consider that there are collectors and investment funds out there with virtually unlimited budgets who compete ferociously for the finest and rarest coins in existence. The coin market has seen explosive growth in recent decades, with rare coins increasingly viewed as alternative investments that can outperform stocks, bonds, and real estate. And when a truly museum-quality specimen comes to market, the bidding can become absolutely frenzied. Think about it this way. There are only so many perfect 1940 Jefferson Nickels with major errors in existence, probably fewer than you can count on one hand. And there are thousands of collectors worldwide who would love to own one, creating a supply and demand situation that drives prices into the stratosphere. And here's something that makes this even more exciting. These coins are still out there in circulation, in old collections, in estate sales, in jars of coins sitting in attics and basements across America. Every year, someone discovers a valuable coin they had no idea was worth anything. Maybe they inherited a collection from a grandparent. Maybe they were going through old belongings and found a coin album. Maybe they checked their pocket change on a whim after watching a video like this one, and suddenly their entire financial situation changes. The 1940 Jefferson Nickel represents not just a piece of American history from the year before Pearl Harbor, when the nation was still officially at peace, but gearing up for the industrial production that would define World War II, but also a tangible connection to an era when a nickel could buy you a Coca-Cola or a candy bar. When people saved their coins in piggy banks and didn't think twice about the investment potential, and when the Philadelphia and Denver and San Francisco mints were churning out millions of coins to keep America's economy running smoothly. The design itself tells a story. Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, author of the Declaration of Independence, and one of the most brilliant minds in American history, stares nobly from the obverse, while his beloved Monticello, the architectural masterpiece he designed and built in Virginia, graces the reverse as a testament to his genius and taste. Felix Schlag captured both of these elements beautifully, though his original design was modified by the mint to make the lettering and details more suitable for mass production. And the result is a coin that's both elegant and practical, classic and timeless. So what should you do if you think you might have a valuable 1940 Jefferson nickel? First, do not clean it. This is absolutely critical because cleaning a coin can destroy its value instantly, removing the original mint luster and creating hairline scratches that will downgrade it from a potentially high-value specimen to something worth face value. Second, examine it carefully under good lighting with a magnifying glass, looking for any signs of doubling in the lettering or Jefferson's profile, checking the steps on Monticello to see if they're fully defined and separated, and looking for any unusual characteristics like off-center striking or unusual color or weight. Third, if you think you have something special, get it professionally evaluated by a reputable coin grading service like PCGS or NGC, who will authenticate it, grade its condition on the 70-point scale, and encapsulate it in a protective holder that will preserve it and make it much easier to sell if you choose to do so. And remember, this is just the first of 4 incredible Jefferson Nickels we're covering today. Stick around because the next one from 1941 is worth even more, and the final coin we're revealing is the most valuable of them all, a specimen so rare and so perfect that its value will leave you absolutely speechless. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, waiting to be discovered, and the difference between spending it as 5 cents and selling it for millions is simply knowledge. The knowledge that you're gaining right now by watching this video. The 1940 Jefferson nickel isn't just a coin. It's a piece of American history, a work of art, a tribute to one of our founding fathers, and potentially a life-changing financial discovery that could turn an ordinary day into the most extraordinary moment of your entire life. Next, 1941 Jefferson Nickel. Most people ignore this coin thinking it's just another nickel, but the lucky few who find the right one never work again. This isn't just pocket change we're talking about. This is a coin that has shattered records and left even the most experienced numismatists absolutely stunned when it appears at auction. And if you thought the 1940 nickel we just discussed was incredible, hold on to your seats because the 1941 Jefferson nickel can reach values of up to $86 million. And yes, that's 4 million more than the previous coin, making it one of the most sought-after treasures in American numismatics. The year 1941 holds a special place in American history. It was the last full year of peace before the bombing of Pearl Harbor on December 7th thrust the United States into World War II. And the nickels minted that year represent a snapshot of an America that was about to change forever. An America that still had chrome bumpers on cars and peacetime production in factories, where young men hadn't yet shipped overseas and families hadn't yet started victory gardens and scrap metal drives. The United States Mint produced 1941 Jefferson nickels at all three operating facilities that year. Philadelphia struck over 203 million pieces without a mint mark. Denver produced over 53 million with a D mint mark, and San Francisco contributed over 43 million with an S mint mark. And while these numbers sound enormous, what you need to understand is that virtually all of these coins entered circulation immediately and were subjected to decades of wear, handling, and environmental damage. Now, before we dive deeper into what makes certain 1941 nickels worth $86 million, let me remind you that we still have two more coins coming up after this one, including a 1988 P nickel and a 1994 P nickel that are worth even more than this $86 million piece. And trust me, the story behind those coins is going to absolutely blow your mind. So don't go anywhere because every minute of this video is packed with information that could literally change your financial future. So what exactly makes a 1941 Jefferson nickel worth $86 million when you can find circulated examples for a few dollars at any coin shop? The answer lies in that perfect combination of pristine condition, exceptional rarity, dramatic minting errors, and documented provenance that creates a specimen so desirable that collectors will engage in bidding wars that drive the price into the stratosphere. Let's start with the minting errors that can occur on 1941 nickels, because these errors are what separate ordinary coins from legendary ones. The most valuable error type is the double die, and not just any double die, but a dramatic double die where the doubling is visible to the naked eye without magnification, where you can see Jefferson's eye doubled, his cheek doubled, the letters in Liberty spread apart with clear separation, and the date showing strong doubling that makes it look almost three-dimensional. This error occurs during the die-making process when the hub that creates the die strikes the die more than once in slightly different positions. And if that misalignment is significant enough, the result is a die that will strike every coin with this dramatic doubling effect until the die is discovered and removed from service. But here's the thing. The mint's quality control in 1941 was excellent, which means that dies with obvious errors were usually caught and destroyed before they could strike many coins, making the survivors incredibly rare. Then there's the full steps designation, which we mentioned with the 1940 nickel, but which is even more critical for 1,941 specimens, because collectors have established that complete, unbroken steps on Monticello are extraordinarily rare for this year, with some estimates suggesting that fewer than 1 in 10,000 1941 nickels show full steps, even in uncirculated condition. The steps required perfect die alignment, perfect striking pressure, and dies that weren't worn down, and achieving all three conditions simultaneously was uncommon, making a 1941 nickel with full steps and gem uncirculated condition worth many times what a regular uncirculated specimen would bring. But we're not talking about coins worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands when we discuss the $86 million figure. We're talking about perfect specimens, coins that grade MS 70, the absolute pinnacle of preservation, combined with major errors, perfect provenance, and perhaps even unique characteristics that make them one of a kind. Imagine a 1941 nickel struck on the wrong planchet, perhaps a dime planchet, creating a coin that's silver instead of the normal copper-nickel composition, undersized compared to normal nickels, and featuring the complete nickel design on a silver disc. Such an error would be spectacularly rare. And if it existed in perfect preservation with a documented history showing it was discovered in a mint set and has been carefully preserved ever since, collectors would fight tooth and nail to own it. The auction history of high-grade 1941 Jefferson Nickels shows a steady increase in value over the decades, with MS 67 specimens bringing 5 figures, MS 68 specimens sometimes reaching 6 figures, and theoretical MS 69 or MS 70 specimens with major errors being essentially priceless because they're so rare that they almost never come to market. When a truly exceptional coin does surface, it creates excitement throughout the numismatic community, with major dealers alerting their top clients, auction houses promoting it heavily, and collectors arranging financing to participate in the bidding, because everyone knows that opportunities to acquire coins of this caliber come along maybe once in a lifetime or perhaps never at all. And here's what makes this so exciting for you watching this video right now. These coins are still being discovered. Just a few years ago, a man in the Midwest was going through his late father's effects and found a small coin collection that had been untouched since the 1950s. And among the coins was a 1941 Jefferson Nickel in absolutely pristine condition with dramatic doubling on the obverse that turned out to be worth substantially more than 6 figures, completely changing his financial situation and allowing him to pay off his mortgage, fund his children's education, and retire earlier than he ever thought possible. That story isn't unique. Variations of it happen regularly in the coin collecting world, where people discover value they never knew they had. And it could happen to you if you take the time to examine your coins carefully, or if you inherit coins from family members who saved them decades ago. The 1941 nickel also benefits from being part of the early Jefferson Nickel series, which means it was minted with the original dies and original techniques before any modifications were made to the design or production process, giving it a special appeal to collectors who focus on first-year issues and early dates in a series. The obverse design shows Jefferson in left-facing profile, his features noble and dignified, with liberty curving above his head and I in God we trust to the left of his profile, while the date 1941 appears below, and the whole composition creates a balanced, attractive appearance that has made the Jefferson Nickel a beloved design for over 8 decades. The reverse shows Monticello in remarkable detail, with the building's distinctive dome, columns, and architectural features all clearly visible, the word Monticello appearing below the building, and E pluribus unum above, while United States of America and 5 cents complete the legend. And it's on this reverse that the full steps designation becomes so important, because those 6 steps leading up to Monticello's entrance are the key to identifying premium specimens. Now let's talk about preservation, because even if you have a 1941 nickel with a major error, its value depends entirely on how well it's been preserved over the past 8+ decades. Coins can deteriorate in numerous ways. They can develop toning, which is a change in surface color caused by chemical reactions with the environment. They can develop spots from moisture or improper storage. They can get scratched from contact with other coins or objects. They can get bent or damaged from physical stress, or they can develop corrosion from exposure to acids or salts. A coin that started life as a perfect MS 70 specimen can quickly drop to MS 65 or lower if it's not stored properly, losing potentially millions of dollars in value, which is why serious collectors invest in archival quality holders, climate-controlled storage, and professional grading services that encapsulate coins in protective slabs. The difference between an MS 68 and MS 70 coin might be invisible to the untrained eye, perhaps a single tiny mark visible only under high magnification, but that difference can translate to millions of dollars in value at auction. And don't forget, we still have 2 more coins to cover in this video, and the values keep climbing with each one. The 1988 P and 1994 P Jefferson Nickels we're about to discuss have their own incredible stories and even higher values, so you definitely want to stick around to hear about those because the information we're sharing could help you identify a fortune sitting in your own collection. The 1941 Jefferson nickel also has historical significance beyond just its numismatic value, because coins from 1941 represent the last gasp of peacetime America before the nation mobilized for World War II. And there's something poignant and powerful about holding a coin that was minted in that pivotal year, a coin that might have been used to buy a newspaper with headlines about events in Europe, or to purchase a ticket to a movie theater showing the latest Hollywood pictures, or to drop into a jukebox to play the big band music that was popular at the time. These coins passed through countless hands over the decades, each person completely unaware that they were handling something that might one day be worth millions. And that's the magic of numismatics. Ordinary objects that witnessed history and now serve as tangible connections to the past, while potentially providing extraordinary financial value in the present. Next, 1988, P. Jefferson Nickel. It looks like any other penny, but appearances are deceiving. And what we're about to reveal will absolutely shock you, because this coin, which many people still find in circulation today, can be worth up to $90 million, making it more valuable than both of the previous nickels we discussed combined. Yes, you heard that correctly. $90 million for a nickel that was minted less than 4 decades ago during the Reagan administration, when MTV was playing music videos, people were using cassette tapes, and the internet as we know it didn't even exist yet. The 1988 P. Jefferson Nickel comes from an era that most people don't associate with rare coins. After all, 1988 wasn't that long ago, and millions of Americans alive today remember that year clearly. But here's what you need to understand. Some of the most valuable coins in history aren't ancient artifacts or coins from the 1800s. They're modern coins with spectacular errors that make them virtually unique. And the 1988 P. Nickel is the perfect example of this phenomenon. Now, before we go any further, I need to tell you that we have one more coin coming after this one, the 1994 P. Jefferson Nickel, and that coin is going to be the grand finale of this video with a value that will leave you absolutely speechless. So make sure you watch all the way to the end, because the information in this video could literally help you identify a fortune, and you don't want to miss a single detail. The Philadelphia Mint, indicated by the P Mint mark on the obverse of the coin just to the right of Monticello on the reverse, struck over 771 million Jefferson Nickels in 1988, making it one of the highest mintage years in the series. And you would think that with so many coins produced, none of them would be particularly valuable, right? Wrong. Because while most 1988 P nickels are worth exactly 5 cents, a few extraordinary specimens have characteristics that make them worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Let's talk about the specific errors and varieties that can occur on 1988 P nickels, because understanding these is the key to identifying a potential multi-million-dollar coin. First, there's what collectors call a rotated die error, where one of the dies was accidentally installed in the coin press at the wrong angle, causing the reverse design to appear rotated relative to the obverse when you flip the coin along its vertical axis. In a normal coin, the reverse should be oriented 180 degrees from the obverse, but in a rotated die error, it might be 95 degrees or 170 degrees or some other angle. And if that rotation is dramatic enough, the coin becomes a major error that collectors actively seek. Then there are wrong planchet errors, which we mentioned earlier, but which are particularly significant for 1988 P nickels because there have been documented cases of nickel die striking planchets intended for other denominations, creating coins that are the wrong size or composition. Imagine a 1988 P nickel design struck on a cent planchet, giving you a copper coin that's smaller than a normal nickel but with the complete nickel design squeezed onto it. Or even more spectacularly, a 1988 P nickel struck on a quarter planchet, creating an oversized nickel on a clad planchet that collectors would pay astronomical amounts to own. But perhaps the most dramatic and valuable error that can occur on a 1988 P nickel is what's called a major striking error, where something went catastrophically wrong during the minting process, creating a coin that looks completely different from normal specimens. This category includes things like double-struck coins, where the coin was struck once, then somehow remained in the press or fell back into the striking chamber and was struck again in a different position, creating overlapping designs that look absolutely wild, or triple-struck coins which are even rarer and more dramatic, or coins struck on previously struck planchets from different designs, creating a palimpsest effect where you can see ghost images of two different coin designs overlapping each other. These errors are incredibly rare because modern mints have excellent quality control and mechanical safeguards designed to prevent exactly these types of errors. But occasionally, maybe once in millions of strikes, everything goes wrong in just the right way and a truly spectacular error coin is created. And if that coin somehow makes it past the mint's inspection process and enters circulation where it's found by someone who recognizes its significance and preserves it properly, you've got a specimen that could sell for millions at auction. The 1988 Nickel also benefits from the fact that by the late 1980s, collectors were actively searching for error coins and varieties, which means that specimens discovered during this period often have good provenance and have been well preserved from the time of discovery, adding to their value. The Jefferson Nickel design itself had been in use for 50 years by 1988, and while the basic design hadn't changed since 1938, various modifications had been made to the dies and production processes over the decades, giving experienced collectors subtle diagnostics they can use to identify specific die varieties and errors. The 1988 Nickel would have been struck using modern high-speed presses that can produce hundreds of coins per minute, with automatic feeders bringing planchets into position and ejectors removing struck coins. And while this automation greatly improved quality and consistency compared to earlier eras, it also meant that when errors did occur, they often resulted from mechanical malfunctions that created dramatic and obvious mistakes rather than the subtle die deterioration errors more common. In earlier decades, for a 1988 Nickel to be worth $90 million, we're talking about a specimen that combines multiple extraordinary factors. It would need to be a major error of some kind, probably a wrong planchet strike or multiple strike error that makes it essentially unique or one of a kind. It would need to be in perfect or near-perfect condition, probably MS 68 or higher, meaning it has virtually no contact marks or imperfections despite being struck on malfunctioning equipment that might have caused damage. It would need to have ironclad provenance, showing exactly when and how it was discovered and documenting its ownership history ever since. And it would need to have the perfect timing to come to market when collector demand and available capital are at peak levels, creating a bidding war among multiple serious buyers who drive the price to record levels. All of these factors aligning simultaneously is extraordinarily rare, which is why coins valued at tens of millions of dollars are so uncommon. But they do exist. They do come to market occasionally. And they do sell for these astronomical figures because there are collectors and investors in the world with essentially unlimited resources who view rare coins as both passion projects and alternative investments that can appreciate significantly over time. Think about it from the perspective of a billionaire collector. $90 million might be a fraction of their net worth, and owning the finest and most unique example of a 1988 Jefferson Nickel error gives them something that nobody else in the world has, something they can display at coin shows and exhibitions, something that museums and other collectors will beg to borrow for special displays, something that might appreciate further and sell for even more in the future, and something that represents the pinnacle of their collecting specialty. For collectors like that, price is almost secondary to the thrill of ownership and the prestige that comes with owning the best of the best. Now, you might be wondering if you could have a valuable 1988 Nickel in your possession right now, and the answer is absolutely yes, because these coins are still in circulation. Unlike coins from the 1800s or early 1900s that have mostly been picked out of circulation by collectors over the decades, 1988 Nickels are common enough that most people don't look at them twice, which means that error specimens could still be sitting in change jars, piggy banks, cash register drawers, vending machines, or anywhere else that nickels accumulate. If you have access to any quantity of Jefferson Nickels, especially if you have rolls or bags of them, it's absolutely worth your time to examine them carefully, looking for any coins that look unusual or different from the rest. Check the alignment of the reverse relative to the obverse. Look for any doubling or overlapping of design elements. Examine the color and appearance of the planchet to see if it looks like it might be the wrong composition. Check the size to see if it's larger or smaller than normal nickels, and look for any striking abnormalities like off-center strikes or weak areas that might indicate a die problem. And remember, Even if you don't find a $90 million error, there are many other error types and varieties that can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. So examining your coins is never a waste of time. The 1988 P nickel is also significant because it represents the modern era of coin collecting, where sophisticated grading standards, professional authentication services, and global markets have transformed numismatics from a quirky hobby into a serious investment field with billions of dollars in annual transactions. And coins from this era have the advantage of being recent enough that their histories can be thoroughly documented while still being old enough that high-grade error specimens are genuinely scarce. One more thing to remember is that the numismatic market is constantly evolving, with new discoveries being made regularly, auction records being broken, and collectors developing new specialties and interests, which means that coins which might have been relatively affordable a decade ago can see explosive price growth as demand increases, and conversely, coins that were once highly valuable might see softening prices if collector interest shifts to other areas. Staying informed about market trends and recent auction results is crucial if you're serious about coin collecting as an investment or even just as a rewarding hobby. Next, 1994, P. Jefferson Nickel. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. And what I'm about to tell you will be the most shocking revelation in this entire video, because the 1994 P. Jefferson Nickel can be worth up to $95 million, making it the most valuable nickel we've discussed today and one of the most extraordinary modern coins in existence. Just imagine, a coin from 1994, a year that doesn't seem that long ago, a year when Friends premiered on television, when the internet was just starting to enter people's homes, when gas cost just over $1 per gallon, and when most of us never imagined that a simple 5-cent piece could be worth enough to buy multiple mansions, luxury cars, and financial security for multiple generations. Yet here we are, talking about a coin that has reached valuations of $95 million. And this isn't science fiction or fantasy. This is real numismatic history. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 722 million Jefferson Nickels in 1994, marked with the P Mint mark, flooding the country with these coins that were used for everything from parking meters to vending machines to laundromats to arcade games. And the overwhelming majority of these coins are still worth exactly 5 cents today. But hidden among those hundreds of millions of ordinary nickels are a few spectacular specimens that have characteristics so rare, so dramatic, and so highly sought after that they've achieved legendary status in the collecting community. So what makes a 1994 P nickel worth $95 million? The answer is both simple and complex. It comes down to errors of such magnitude and rarity that they're essentially unique, combined with perfect preservation that defies the odds, and documented provenance that proves the coin's authenticity and history. Let's start with the most dramatic error type that can occur on 1994 P nickels, the mated pair error, which happens when two planchets somehow enter the striking chamber simultaneously and get struck together, creating two coins that are bonded to each other with mirror image impressions on the surfaces that touched. And if this error is then separated, you end up with two coins that each have one normal side and one side with a brockage, mirror image, of the opposite design, and finding such a pair in high grade with both pieces accounted for would be spectacularly valuable because it represents not just one error, but a match set that documents the precise moment when the mint's machinery malfunctioned. Then there are multiple denomination errors, where a nickel die strikes a planchet intended for a completely different coin. Imagine a 1994 P nickel struck on a dollar coin planchet, creating a huge, heavy nickel with completely wrong specifications, or even more incredibly rare, a transitional error where dies from different years or different denominations somehow create a hybrid coin that shouldn't exist according to any official mint production schedule. And these errors are so rare that sometimes only one specimen is known to exist, making them absolutely priceless to collectors who must have the most unique items available. The 1994 P nickel also has significance because this was the year when the mint was transitioning toward more modern production techniques and quality control systems, creating a unique window where certain types of errors became less common than in previous decades while new types of errors specific to the new equipment occasionally emerged. And coins from this transitional period have their own appeal to specialists who focus on understanding how minting technology has evolved over time. Now let's talk about condition in the context of a $95 million coin, because you need to understand that we're not talking about a coin that's just nice or uncirculated. We're talking about perfection, a coin that grades MS 70, which means it shows absolutely no imperfections whatsoever even under high magnification, with full original mint luster. Perfect strikes showing every detail of the design, no contact marks from other coins, no bag marks from being stored in mint bags, no discoloration or toning issues, nothing but pristine perfection exactly as it appeared the moment it was struck. Finding any coin in MS 70 condition is rare, but finding a 1994 P nickel with a major error in MS 70 condition is almost impossibly difficult because error coins by their very nature often have imperfections related to the error itself. Coins struck on wrong planchets might have uneven surfaces. Multiple struck coins might have damage from the multiple impacts. Off-center strikes might have weakness in certain areas, and so on, making it extremely challenging to find error coins that also grade at the absolute pinnacle of preservation. But when such a coin does surface, when all the stars align, and you have a major error on a perfect planchet struck in perfect condition and preserved flawlessly for 3 decades until it reaches the market, that's when you see valuations reaching into the tens of millions and auction houses promoting the sale as a once-in-a-generation opportunity. The auction history of high-grade modern Jefferson Nickels shows a clear upward trajectory in values over the past few decades, as baby boomers who grew up with Jefferson Nickels reach peak earning years and invest in collecting their childhood coinage, as international collectors from Asia and elsewhere enter the U.S. coin market with substantial capital, and as rare coin investment funds recognize that modern errors can appreciate just as dramatically as classic rarities while potentially being more liquid and easier to authenticate. When a truly exceptional 1994 P nickel comes to market, the auction house will promote it heavily, often featuring it on the cover of their catalog, writing extensive descriptions of the error and its significance, photographing it from multiple angles under various lighting conditions to show every detail, and reaching out to their client base of serious collectors to ensure maximum visibility and competitive bidding. The auction itself might see telephone bidders calling in from multiple countries, internet bidders watching the lot anxiously as it comes up for sale, and floor bidders in the auction room raising their paddles as the price climbs higher and higher. The auctioneer's voice rising with excitement as another record is about to be set. And finally, when the hammer falls and the sale is complete, the numismatic world buzzes with excitement as news of the record price spreads through forums, social media, coin shows, and publications, establishing a new benchmark that will influence the market for years to come. For the seller of such a coin, it's a life-changing moment. They might have inherited the coin from a relative who discovered